Hi, Clint Kuhns here with Anderson Business Advisors, and in this video what I want to talk about is how to create the proper joint venture to make sure that your deal's going smoothly. And really what I'm going to be focusing on here is from the investor's point of view, and I assume that you're going to be using a hard money lender to put your deals together and a gap funder, someone to bring money into the deal for you to help you close. Now, many of you have set up entities to go out there and buy and sell real estate. And many times the way these deals work is that you will have this corporation here that you've set up. So here's your corp. You find this property that you want to get under contract. And then what you'll do is, in order to close on this property, you're going to have a hard money lender over here who's going to come in on this deal for you. And then you need to find a gap funder to bring in money into the deal as well for you to help close on that property. Now, how does this typically get structured? Well, oftentimes the investor who's right here, what you'll do is you'll enter into this JV agreement with this gap funder in order to secure the funds to buy this property and to do the rehab work. Many times that joint venture agreement provides that in exchange for these funds, the gap funder is going to receive 50% when the property sells of its proceeds. Okay, great. We have a piece of paper and we think we are protected, right? Because we have this joint venture agreement between us and it obligates each party to do certain things. Well, if you think about it for a minute, all you have is an agreement. What does that do? Well, that ensures if one party doesn't perform, you're going to end up in a lawsuit. That's what it ensures. And what I mean by that is that there's no way for the gap funder to enforce his rights against this LLC absent to going to court because he's not involved in the transaction. He's just given money up. Vice versa, you're over here relying upon the gap funder to give you money. And if the gap funder doesn't, let's say you're halfway into the project and the gap funder decides, you know what, I found a better project somewhere else and I'm going to go fund that deal. And yeah, I've given you $20K thus far, but I'm not going to be able to make up the additional $25,000 because now I've lent it out somewhere else. So the gap funder is really free to walk away, and your only recourse would be to sue under this JV agreement. But by that time, you've already lost your property because the hard money lender's foreclosed because you haven't brought this to completion and you haven't sold it and paid them off. So it's a real problem. Now, is there a solution? Absolutely, there's a solution if you're willing to look at it from a different perspective. So what I suggest we do is we avoid the joint venture agreement garbage altogether. My preferred methodology for these types of deals is to set up your corporation here. All right, now you should be setting up some Wyoming LLCs. You should have a few of them set up, 4 different deals, possibly a minimum of 3. We set up 3 Wyoming LLCs, just like this. Now, with those LLCs, what we'll do initially is we'll just set them up. They'll be single member LLCs. They can be owned by your corporation and you can be the manager of your LLCs. Now, it is these LLCs that we set up that we will begin to make our offers in. Now, I don't care if you live in California, Florida, New Mexico, New Jersey, it doesn't matter. These do not need to be filed in those states. You can buy property with a Wyoming LLC in any state and it's not required to register there. Now, it may be that your lender might require it or title, but I haven't seen it that many times, so I wouldn't worry about this. What you want to do is you want to get your LLC set up and then you want to start making offers. Now, let's assume that we get an offer on this LLC right here. So this gets an offer accepted, and let's assume that this deal right here is in Illinois. Now, in order to fund this deal, to bring this deal to fruition, I've got my LLC here. I need to bring in my gap funder. So let's assume that I'm going to bring in this gap funder over here. Now, we're not going to do the standard joint venture agreement garbage that has caused so many problems for real estate investors. Instead, what I'm going to suggest you do is you set up this LLC and you make this gap funder, if his deal is he gets 50% of the deal for bringing in, let's say, $75K, and then you should start out as the second member for 50%. Now, the reason I'm saying you and not your corporation any longer is because if you're working with a lender, a hard money lender, and they're going to want you and the gap funder, of course, to go on the loan. They want the owners of the LLC to be on the loan. They want personal guarantees from them. They want to qualify them in order to loan you the money so that you can buy this property. So it's much easier if it's just the LLC just shows you and your gap funder. And it doesn't show your corporation initially. Because if it shows your corporation and you go to apply for a loan, what the hard money lender is going to see is they're going to see the LLC, they're going to see gap funder, and then they're going to see this Wyoming corporation where your name doesn't appear anywhere on it. So what occurs is then they want to know more about this company, and from there they're going to get down to you right down here, and they're going to know that you own that company. So what I want to do is make it real simple to put these deals together for you. So if you start out like this, both of you will go on the loan. They'll see that you're both members in the LLC. So you get your loan, you get the property tied up now in the name of the limited liability company. Your hard money lender's over here. Okay. Ideally, flips. I've told you before, if you're watching my other videos, you don't want to have flips in your own name, okay? You want to flip through a corporation. Well, that's simple enough to fix right now. What we'll do is after we've closed on this, we can take your interest and then assign it over to the corporation. We'll just take you out of the deal altogether. It'll be your corporation owning 50% of this LLC. Gap funder owns the other 50%. See how that's done? You were a member for the purposes of the loan. So you went on the loan, you're liable on the loan, you gave a personal guarantee. Gap funder gave a personal guarantee. We've got the loan. Now we move the LLC over into the corporation. Okay, now I've presented this numerous times to people, and here's the objection I typically get from the investor. My gap funder is not going to want to go on the loan. Okay, he doesn't want to be personally liable for this deal. Well, that means you haven't convinced him of the benefits of going on this loan. I mean, think of it this way. When the gap funder's on the loan, he has protection. And what I mean by that is if you as the investor screw up, you don't pay, the loan's going to go into default, the lender is going to notify everyone who's on the loan. So gap funder gets notified. So it's in their benefit to be on the loan because they'll find out if something's going off the tracks before it's too late to step in and do anything. So that's one reason why they want to be on the loan. Now, they're also going to be in the LLC. They're going to be an owner of the LLC. So now they have an ownership interest in the property. Whereas if it's a standard joint venture agreement, they have zero ownership in the property. The property is just the investors. So here's what you tell the gap funder. You know, by being in this through the LLC and being on the loan, you're also now owning the property through the limited liability company. So you have an ownership interest here, more protection for you. Now, from your point of view, having the gap funder on there also protects you because the gap funder now knows that he needs to put in $75,000. And granted, many times it doesn't come all at once. He needs to bring it in over time as we reach certain stages of the construction of the rehab project. Well, as I brought up earlier, if gap funder decided to pull out after he put in $20,000 and go somewhere else, he's got no skin in the game. He doesn't care. Yeah, you can sue him, but you probably won't. But now we've put him in a situation where he's going to be committed. Because if he tries to pull out now and he screws the project up, well, he's on that loan as well, just like you are. So if the hard money lender forecloses, it's both of you that are going to have to pay up. So now he's committed to the transaction as well, just like you. So it works in both of your favors to put the gap funder into the LLC and put the gap funder on the loan. Now, you flip your property in the name of the limited liability company, deal gets done, money comes in. Let's say on this deal here we made $100,000. All right, if gap funder had put in $75K, the money would be distributed as follows. Gap funder gets back their $75,000 that they invested. That leaves $25,000 in profit, which we would divide 50-50. $12,500 over here, $12,500 back to our gap funder, just like that. Deal's done. Next thing we need to do is to dissolve this limited liability company. Just dissolve it out. And then keep in mind that when you dissolve it out, this LLC was a partnership, so it's going to have to file a tax return. So once you've done the deal, you want to make sure that you contact us or whoever set it up for you and file articles of dissolution. And then keep in mind you're going to need to file a 1065 tax return, federal tax return, the following year, okay, to account for the income. So those are the two pieces of the equation you're going to have to do to make sure you're protected once you dissolved it out, no liability there. And then you got to get the tax return because Uncle Sam wants to get paid. So this is how I would suggest you set up the deals. The reason why I like Wyoming to set up these LLCs to make offers in is because it's inexpensive to set up LLCs there. I mean, you can set up 3 LLCs and the carrying cost on an LLC in Wyoming is $50 a year. They can be set up within 24 hours. I just worked with a deal on an individual down in Florida, just like I showed you right here. Here was the situation. They needed to close within 10 days. And this was on a Thursday when he contacted me, and he wanted me to set up a Florida limited liability company for him. And I said, we can do it, but Florida could take 3 to 5 days. He said, well, if we got 10, we should be able to make it. Here we are, day 6, and the LLC is still not complete yet with Florida. What we did is we jumped over to Wyoming, set up an LLC the very same day, drafted the operating agreement, sent it to him, closed in the name of the Wyoming LLC, and the property's located in Florida. No problem. Seamless transaction. This is why I suggest you create these LLCs and then make multiple offers in these LLCs as you're going along. And then once one gets accepted, boom, we take that out of the mix. That now has a deal. You can, if you're still making offers, even though you have that deal going on, set up another LLC and just keep that process going. The key thing here too is that when we draft these LLCs, are initially set up as single member LLCs with only one owner. We put together a real simple operating agreement for you so you have protection that you're a valid business, and then you can go out there and put your deals together or make your offers. But then once you bring in the gap funder, we need to change this operating agreement and we need to turn it into a joint venture limited liability company operating agreement to then bring in the gap funder and make sure that both parties are protected, and we clearly outline what the expectations are of the various individuals. In fact, typically when I do these transactions, I recommend that both the investor and the gap funder go on the LLC, of course, as members, but also as joint managers as well. And then you can split up management duties between the parties. Maybe the investor is going to handle everything. That's great. We'll list it all out inside of there. So this is how I create joint ventures from an investor point of view. This is what's going to give you some protection going forward. It allows you to put deals together, bring in gap funders, and both of you benefit because you're going to be protected from each other doing anything squirrely with the property. My name is Clint Coons with Anderson Business Advisors.